Life is about the moments we fucked up, and here is mine. I was abruptly awakened from my sleep by a sharp voice amplified through a microphone, causing me to be jolted. As I opened my eyes, I was met with an unsettling sight of my very own face being projected on the screen that was positioned right behind the speaker. This realization shook off any dizziness that I had and only deepened my sense of panic, causing my whole body to tremble for a moment with a frantic expression evident on my face. After a few seconds of disorientation and recalibrating my disarrayed thoughts, I was finally able to remember that today was the day when my professor was going to give a thesis presentation. The voice amplified through the microphone belonged to none other than my professor, who currently stood on the stage, and from the looks of it, the man appeared to be visibly upset with the fact that someone had fallen asleep during his presentation. I started to feel a rush of embarrassment and regret, realizing that all the esteemed professors and other influential individuals from the industry were present at this very moment, making the situation all the more awkward and uncomfortable. I'm fucked, I thought to myself, my mind racing with anxiety. However, trapped in this situation with no way out, I had no other way but to give it my all and survive. After all, since I was already in this predicament, what could there be more to make me be afraid? Professor Rodham was fuming with anger when he discovered that one of the attendees had dozed off on a day when he was about to make his mark in the history of the tech industry. As he looked closely, he remembered that the fellow was one of those poor students that attended his classes. He chose to accept such students for the sake of enhancing his reputation positively. So, he decided to teach this brat a lesson today and let him know what his place was. Since the kid had decided to sleep on the day of his presentation, he was sure it wouldn't harm him in any way, since he was going to have the best reputation one could have for someone in the tech community due to the groundbreaking thesis that he was presenting. "Can you stand up? You." "Yes, the one who was sleeping." "Stand up," he said, emphasizing the student's sleeping so that even in the future when people wanted to revisit this history-making moment, they would know the reason as to why he decided to humiliate this student. Since he was sleeping during such a historic moment, they will without a doubt side with him, as people usually follow the successful one, meaning that his reputation won't be harmed in the slightest, or it was even possible that it might even increase, since it would seem that he was also a hater of lazy people or something. Whatever one might come to a reason, as the professor looked at the still disoriented student of his, he decided to compound more to this one's misery by demanding an answer from him for a question that was the main crux of today's thesis presentation. "Since you are capable of sleeping, it implies that you know more than all of us here. Care to explain this part?" he said, smugly pointing to the most challenging part of the presentation, eagerly awaiting his student's embarrassment, one that he couldn't even care to know the name of. While he was waiting for the student to embarrass himself, he heard something he never expected to hear today. "There is a mistake at this point." "What?" the professor exclaimed, surprised to hear the words. However, he quickly calmed himself down and regained his composure after remembering that the one who pointed out that there was an error was still a student, and one who had been asleep just a few minutes prior. "It seems you are still half asleep, so sit down." The professor decided to make the student sit, so that the fellow won't embarrass him and avoid tarnishing his historic moment. But the student didn't sit down. Instead, he continued speaking. "No, sir, there really is a mistake," and then continued explaining where the mistakes exactly were. The professor was horrified by the student's explanation, as he watched his reputation crumble by every second, because the mistake was pretty obvious, but the reason why most people had missed it was because they didn't expect such an obvious blunder to be made by a professor of his reputation. "Take him out," the professor thundered, commanding the security personnel to drag me out of the conference. Chaos erupted in the hall as the people were taken aback by the magnitude of the oversight that allowed such an error to pass through the rigorous review process and even be approved for presentation. Little did I know at this moment that the reason such a glaring error went unnoticed was due to the professor's influential family background. Eli Yehuda Rodham Rothschild, the professor's full name, carried a weight of power that shielded him from scrutiny. But in my ignorance, I continued to mutter, oblivious to the fact that my ordinary life had just come to an abrupt end. My muttered words were abruptly silenced as I was tackled and forcibly carried out by a group of security guards. It was in that moment of being forcefully taken away that the harsh reality sank in me. I had truly fucked up. 2 weeks had elapsed since that unforgettable day, and Professor Eli Yehuda Rodham Rothschild had taken a month-long leave to recover from the emotional strain caused by the incident. However, there was no such respite for Aaron, a regular student in the final year of university. With a mere 3 weeks remaining until graduation, he continued attending classes, determined to complete his studies and forge the future that lay ahead. On this particular day, Aaron found himself in campus, making his way to the designated location to submit his graduation thesis. Exams had already been taken, and the results had also been announced. Now, all that stood between Aaron and his coveted diploma was the successful submission and defense of his thesis. Having completed the task at hand, Aaron made his way back home, knowing that the review process was underway and an appointment for his thesis defense had yet to be scheduled. With an abundance of free time on his hands, Aaron pondered what would be the best way to occupy himself until the next milestone of his academic journey. A week later, a week after submitting his graduation thesis, Aaron received an email from the university. Expecting it to be related to the scheduling of his thesis defense, he opened the email with a sense of eager anticipation. However, to his surprise, the contents of the email were nothing like what he had expected or what he had heard from others. Subject: Disciplinary Committee Meeting Invitation, Accusation of Thesis Theft and Plagiarizing. Dear Aaron, we are writing to inform you that a disciplinary committee meeting has been scheduled to address the serious allegations of thesis theft and plagiarism that have been brought against you. The meeting will take place on May 12, 2013, at 10:45 a.m. in the Faculty of Engineering building. The allegations of theft are a very serious matter, and we take them with utmost seriousness. As a member of our academic community, it is expected that you uphold the highest standards of academic integrity. We understand that this may be a difficult time for you, but it is important that you cooperate with the investigation to help us reach a fair and just outcome. During the disciplinary committee meeting, you will have the opportunity to present your side of the story and respond to the allegations that have been made against you. We kindly request that you attend the meeting on time and be prepared to provide any information or evidence that you believe may be relevant to the case. Please be aware that if you fail to attend the disciplinary committee meeting, a decision may still be reached based on the evidence presented to the committee. We strongly advise that you attend the meeting to avoid any adverse consequences. If you have any questions or concerns regarding the disciplinary committee meeting or the allegations that have been made against you, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to support you and help you navigate through this process. Best regards, Julian Lenny, Disciplinary Committee, Columbia University. Aaron was horrified instead of being startled, since he knew deep down that this couldn't be true. He had diligently run his thesis through 5 different plagiarism checker programs, and none of them had found even a semblance of similarity to his work. It was clear to him that this had to be either a terrible mistake or a malicious conspiracy. Regardless of that, he knew that he was fucked up big this time. On the designated day, Aaron arrived at the meeting location completely prepared for the discipline committee hearing, despite his previous attempts to clarify the potential mistake. As soon as he entered the room, he found 4 professors awaiting his arrival, ready to commence the proceedings without any delay. From the very beginning, it was apparent that the meeting was heavily biased, leaning more towards a predetermined outcome. Even as Aaron passionately defended himself, it seemed as though his words were falling on deaf ears or being deliberately disregarded. By the 45th minute of the meeting, it became painfully evident to Aaron that his fate had been sealed long before this meeting had even begun. The meeting continued, disregarding Aaron's evidence as the committee pressed on with their accusations, armed with their own evidence. What puzzled him was that they presented thesis papers dating back 7 years, and there were some that were even more recent. Aaron was certain these papers didn't exist until a few days ago. How did they discover evidence of plagiarism in papers that didn't exist before? He highly suspected that he was being targeted, although uncertain of the culprit's identity due to lacking any kind of evidence. The committee informed him that the decision would be announced in 3 days. Feeling disheartened, Aaron returned to his dormitory, awaiting the committee's conclusion before taking any further action. It was a warm spring day, and the Columbia University campus was buzzing with excitement. Families and friends had gathered to celebrate the graduation of the class of 2009, which was graduating in 2013. Among the sea of gowns and hats, stood Aaron, a young man brimming with anger, sadness, and disappointment. As he took his place among the crowd and glanced around at his friends in graduation attire, Aaron couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought him to this moment. It had been 4 years since he had first stepped foot in this campus, filled with hope and determination to make the most of his university experience. Now, here he was, on the brink of a new chapter of his life, holding an expulsion notice in hand and facing the brutal world that was waiting for him. Anger coursed through Aaron as he trembled, remembering how he was denied graduation on the very day of the graduation ceremony as they kept postponing the announcement of their decision. It was only then that he was informed of their decision by his professor. And the decision was utterly fucked up. It was his first time seeing someone being expelled via email. Like what the fucking hell, an email? The reason they gave him was the blatant use of plagiarized material without citing them as sources. Like what the fuck? How was he supposed to know that he had plagiarized something without knowing it existed even after using 5 thesis checking programs and finding that none had flagged any similarities to his? But what made him feel weird was how they even managed to find such a significant amount of information in such a short period of time. It seemed as if someone was deliberately trying to sabotage his already difficult life. But who would want to do such a thing to him? As the graduation ceremony came to a conclusion, Aaron trudged back to his dormitory to gather all of his belongings. Being expelled from the school, he had to leave the school grounds within a week. Although he appealed their verdict, the authorities denied him of it and further informed him that he wouldn't be allowed to appeal anymore due to the conclusive evidence they had obtained against him. So, they advised him that he shouldn't be wasting their time and rather start preparing himself so that he could leave the campus grounds before being forcefully thrown out. With his heavy heart filled with disappointment and frustration, Aaron could only leave the university all alone without noticing anyone around to send him off. That was because he had lost almost all his friends after the accusation was announced against him. And the remaining 2 friends of his also couldn't see him off as they had to attend the mandatory meeting that was held for graduates. As for the rest of his friends, they had abandoned him the moment the information was divulged, which was quite weird in itself. Upon arriving at his home, Aaron found his parents, waiting for him, eager to hear the whole story from him with all the detail, as they had only heard the short summary of it. However, as soon as they saw the expression on their son's face, Rose and Michael knew that it was going to take a long time to listen to the entire story. With tears streaming down his face, Aaron painstakingly recounted to his parents about all the events that had transpired in excruciating detail. He also explained how he had been denied graduation by the university and later was expelled from the university for something he didn't even do. Although his parents had heard the short form of the story, they still listened to him with great attention and utter disbelief. The 2 were completely unable to comprehend just how their son could have been treated so unjustly. After completely listening to his explanation, despite being filled with sadness and anger on their son's behalf, they looked at each other, while Michael asked with concern, "So what do you plan to do now?" Aaron sighed and answered, "Honestly, I don't know where to start, and since I can't appeal for it again in the university, the only way for me to be able to do anything other than sue them, is to find a job, since I am aware that we can't really afford to take any legal actions." Although Michael and Rose felt embarrassed upon hearing this, neither of them could refute his statement as what he said was mostly true. But they also understood that their son wasn't saying this to shame them or anything but simply acknowledging to them that his only path to fight against this injustice was also blocked due to their financial situation. "So, I'll have to start looking for a part-time job since I don't have a diploma, and most of the jobs in my field need one," Aaron said, his demeanor seeming like he had already given up on the idea of trying to return to the university. "Furthermore, it's also most likely possible that I won't be getting a job either, because, for some reason, it has been leaked out that I have plagiarized my thesis. So, I already have a negative reputation in the entire industry," Aaron added, trying to restrain himself from cursing in front of his parents and his little brother, Henry, who was oblivious to whatever was happening. Aaron's parents were hard-working individuals who had sacrificed a lot to provide their son with the best education possible. However, despite their best efforts, they were still struggling to make ends meet and simply didn't have the financial means to assist their son with his legal battle. Aaron's mind was about to be overwhelmed by guilt seeing the sadness his parents felt for him, but just as he was about to console them and assure them that this wasn't going to be a significant problem, he heard a notification on his phone, informing him that he received an email. Curious, He got his phone from his pocket to unlock it before giving it a read, and oh god, he was taken aback by what he saw on the white screen and almost had a heart attack because. Dear Aaron, I regret to inform you that, as a result of your expulsion from Columbia University during your final year, you are required to repay the scholarship funds you had received so far. We understand that this is a challenging situation for you, but it is a necessary step we have to take in order to maintain the integrity of our scholarship program. We have come to the conclusion that the total amount of your disbursed scholarship funds for the academic year will need to be repaid all at once. We understand that this may create a financial burden for you, and we want to work with you to find a repayment plan that is feasible and manageable given your circumstances. Please contact our office as soon as possible to discuss the repayment options and to initiate the process of returning the scholarship funds. We will work with you to make this process as smooth and efficient as possible. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to support you and help you through this difficult time. Sincerely, Stephen Brock, Scholarship Program Coordinator. Noticing their son's face suddenly turning deathly pale, Aaron's parents got scared, while Rose asked with worry, "Aaron, what's wrong?" However, Aaron wasn't able to hear her question since his mind was already occupied while calculating the amount of money he had received during these 4 years of scholarship. The estimated cost of attendance for an undergraduate student in an academic year, including the tuition, fees, room and board, books, and other expenses, was approximately $61,500 per year. This means that he had to pay the minimum sum of $246,000 more or less for a 4-year undergraduate degree. He almost fainted after completing his calculations because he knew he was in a fucked up situation for the next few years until he repaid everything. However, when his parents asked him to show what the message was, he refrained from doing so, knowing that it might give them a heart attack. Their current financial situation couldn't support debt payments, or they might just have to file for bankruptcy. So, he only told them that the email was about the confirmation of his expulsion, which was also why he became paler, and that nothing else was wrong. Although the two understood that he was lying or not telling the whole truth, they didn't insist on it and left him alone, knowing that he was currently immensely stressed and there is no need to pile more on top of it. While Aaron was sleeping soundly, that is if you could count sleeping by using sleeping pills. Aaron lay sound asleep in his bed, exhausted from the emotional turmoil he had to go through for the past few hours. Also, the humongous debt that had been dropped on him while he was still stressed. Recovering immediately when you suddenly find that you have $250,000 in debt without any warning was impossible. For the current Aaron, life was really stressful. He really wished he could rewind time and change whatever was causing this. That was if he knew what caused it, but he will find it, and when he finds it, he will. While Aaron was soundly sleeping, a strange object suddenly appeared in space. It hovered briefly before it was pulled towards the Earth by the planet's gravity and descended into the atmosphere. And to everyone's amazement, if someone was even capable of witnessing it, although the object was falling at an intense speed, it didn't cause any ripple during its fall at such a distance due to its small size and its terminal velocity, which wasn't really surprising. It passed right through buildings and trees effortlessly as if they simply didn't exist. Eventually, it landed directly on top of Aaron's head and passed through it. However, the next moment it didn't emerge on his chin or elsewhere. However, if one had the ability to see through things, one would notice that the object had stopped right within Aaron's brain and had started to assimilate with it while seamlessly synchronizing with it. The assimilation was going on smoothly without any problem until Aaron abruptly woke up, only to faint immediately. The strange object that had fallen from the sky had somehow forced him to continue his sleep while it continued merging with his brain and assimilating with it. While the assimilation was taking place, some parts of the object were integrating with Aaron's nervous system, while some parts were mingled with bone marrow, and there were still some which dispersed throughout all the parts of his body. However, even then, almost half of it remained covering almost all of his brain, mimicking the functions of the specific regions of the brain it was assimilating. Ding! System assimilation in progress, 10%, 30%, 50%, 99%. The message was sent to Aaron's brain, but he couldn't perceive it since he was currently forced into a comatose state for his sake. If not, he would have experienced excruciating pain throughout his body and would have wanted death for himself or the world. 99.999999999%. 100%. Once the progress number reached 100, all the parts of the object in Aaron's body ceased making any movements, as they also started to continue acting to function identically as the areas of Aaron's body they were currently assimilated in. System assimilation completed. Again, the message was sent to him, but like before, Aaron didn't hear it either. Examining and analyzing host's body. Analysis complete. Examining and analyzing the host's existing environment. Analysis Existence of magic energy confirmed. The user's body and similar currently existing life forms on the planet have not evolved for magic use. Due to the system's current limitations, system can't help the host's body handle magic, looking for a solution. Request solution and upgrade. Since Aaron's body, or like anyone's body on Earth, hasn't evolved to be able to wield magic, the system sought requests for upgrading options and permission for upgrading the user's body to be able to use magic abilities. However, error main server connection unavailable. Unfortunately, the main server that would have helped Aaron's body to be able to wield magic was not present in this universe, denying him a "you shall not pass" moment for Aaron. That would have been pretty cool though. Retry. Error main server connection unavailable. Retry. X 10 sextillion times requested. Man, that piece of shit was persistent like damn. I mean, if you try something a billion times and it fails, just give up, man. Have some dignity. Activating missing server protocol for upgrade. Oh, looks like someone smart made this, thank God. Request solution and upgrade from embedded local system. Request approved due to reason #EU8475N DACU MJDLSJ 74826 *361583154 BCSL. Updating. 10%. 75%. 100 solution found. Runic codex deemed suitable for the user. Since Aaron's body was incapable of using magic, the system chose the only way Aaron could be capable of interacting with magic, which was runes. Update complete. System permission, full, advanced technology system bound. Ding. Aaron remained in a deep slumber, completely unaware of the profound changes that were occurring within him and the new path of fate that had been opened for this universe. Since the DLC of using magic, from discovering it to ways of using it for humans, was planned to be released in about 3,000 years in order to allow the living things on the planet to evolve. So, one small step for Aaron, a giant leap for lifekind on Earth. The next morning after Aaron woke up, as soon as he rose from his bed, suddenly a voice rang in his mind saying, "Say status." What? Status? And since he was still in a disoriented state from his sleep, Aaron simply muttered what he had heard in his head in a confused manner. However, the system didn't care whether it really was his intention or not. What mattered to it was whether the magic word was mentioned or not, and it was. So right after Aaron uttered the word, trying to shake off his sleep, a blue screen suddenly appeared in front of him, displaying a series of information. Status. Name. Aaron Michael. Age. 22. Height. 1.89 meters. System class. Rune Master. Shop. Search. SP amount. 100,000. Quest. Daily quest. Ways to get stronger. 100 push-ups. 0 100s. 100 crunches. 0 100s. 100 squat. 0 100s. 10 kilometers running. 0 tenths. Rewards. 100 SP. Just as his face was about to show some fear after witnessing a random screen suddenly pop in front of his face out of nowhere, a large amount of information started being flooded into his brain, overwhelming him to the point where he even forgot to express his fear. And once it was completed being crammed into his head, the information started to assimilate within his mind till it reached to a point where it felt as if he had known every last detail about this information for years. After a while, when everything was done, Aaron took a moment to immediately calm himself down before he started to review the new knowledge which he had acquired, seemingly out of nowhere. Firstly, he learned how the system worked. The system contained a vast amount of knowledge and it was in almost every field he could have even thought of, but if he wanted to get access to this kind of knowledge, Aaron needed to buy them using system points, SP. And in order to buy them, all he needed to do was search for what he wanted and the system would provide a list with their corresponding prices. After selecting what kind of knowledge he wanted and purchasing it, the knowledge would then be assimilated into his brain, allowing him to completely understand it, after which he would be able to immediately use it. Currently, there are only 2 ways for Aaron to earn SP, one of which was the obvious one, which was to complete the quests that were assigned by the system, but right now he only had one quest on the quest window, and from the information that had been transferred to him not long ago, he could tell that it might be his only quest for a very long time. And unless he did something unexpected or proved himself to be worthy enough for the system's standard, he wouldn't get any additional quests. Another way for him to get SP was by utilizing the knowledge he received from the system by using it to create something useful, and that would later be analyzed and graded by the system. And depending on the grade points he will be assigned by the system as a reward. However, all the analyzing, grading and rewarding of points would be done in the background so as not to constantly interrupt him. Still, Aaron could ask the system to show him his grades as a means for him to evaluate his products. The system was using this method in order to encourage him to innovate and offer real-time rewards for it in the form of SP for his creations. However, the system wasn't as merciless as one would think of it to be. It made sure that he doesn't start with 0 SP by awarding 100,000 SP as a starter pack so as to prevent him from wasting a long time to earn points for a system he doesn't even know the importance of. Another piece of information that he received from this new information was about the system's origin, but whenever Aaron tried to contemplate it even in the slightest, all he saw was a string of random letters and voices which he couldn't understand. And realizing that he couldn't understand it for the time being, Aaron gave up trying to know about it until he had more time and had gotten used to the system. The final aspect of the information given to him was about Rune Master, mentioned as his class in the list of the panel, but he only found its meaning in nothing other than that, which puzzled him even more since it was listed in the panel before. Since his body hasn't evolved for magic use and the system couldn't connect to the main server, all it could grant him was a fraction of the powers of a Rune Master, which was to inscribe runes on objects in order to influence the object's behavior or give them some properties. He could ascribe a firewood to have cold properties, and when the firewood was burned, the fire emitted from it would be cold rather than hot. However, the information on how to use runes and all the other details about it were not provided to him, leaving him curious with just the short explanation at hand, as he was really curious and wanted to have more information about it. Unfortunately, that was also left for later. After spending about 30 minutes while accepting his current reality, Aaron got up from his bed and headed to the bathroom to freshen himself up and prepare for the day. When he left his room after cleaning himself, Aaron headed to the dining table in order to join along with his family for breakfast, and that was when he noticed his mother had her eyes swollen. This sight pained him deeply since he knew that his mother must likely not have slept last night and spent a significant amount of time crying for her to have swollen eyes. And since he knew the reason behind it, nothing but anger surged within him as he vowed to not let his family live through such a situation again, and was also even more resolved to find what or who was the cause of his unfair expulsion in order to exact his revenge 100-fold, for that person was responsible for making his mother cry. He ate his breakfast quietly and refrained from bringing up the topic since it seemed like Rose was trying to hide her distress from him. After breakfast he went back to his room, feeling that he needed to have a deep contemplation, a plan to make something, a future to plan and a debt to repay. However, he had to start from somewhere at the very least. 7 hours later, Aaron left his room, wearing jogging clothes as he had a quest to complete. During the time he spent in his room, Aaron had been exploring maybe one of the most important features that came with the system shop. When he started delving around in the shop, Aaron discovered different branches of knowledge, filled with every technology he could think of. The only things separating him and the knowledge were the system points, SP, of which he had very few compared to the price of what he wanted to buy from the system. So, after spending a few hours and sorting things based on price, Aaron managed to find something that he could currently use in order to start earning money and get out of his massive debt. Bug Zapper. Description. A program that is designed and used to find any weakness in any program and also propose a solution to the problem in a way that is user-friendly, professional and efficient for the user. History. Initially, it was started to be used in the year 2134 by the Umbrella Corporation in order to enhance its system security. It was later made available and released for public use in the year 2200. Created by bipedal intelligent organisms, humans. Located in the Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy, 25,000 light-years from the galactic center. Solar System's coordinates. Right ascension, 17 hours, 45 minutes, 40.04 seconds. Declination. -29 degrees, 0 minutes, 28.1 seconds. Price. 100,000 SP. Aaron chose this program because he could use it as a means to earn money faster and repay his debt much more quickly, sparing any trouble that could cause his parents to have a heart attack if they learned about it later. Additionally, it was easy for him to think of ways to utilize it since it was based on knowledge about what he had been studying as his major in university, so the barrier of entry for him was as low as it could possibly get. After deciding what direction he wanted to go, Aaron purchased the knowledge and then suddenly started having a headache of his life as the knowledge was being downloaded and assimilated into his brain, being made ready for him to use, but since he fainted, all those processes that happened went pretty unnoticeable for him. And when he woke up, Aaron realized that he now possessed a whole new knowledge that delved deep into how he could make the program. He could also simply extract a small part of the program's code and apply it to other places, as it gave him a comprehensive understanding and everything related to the subject of the knowledge. So, he thought that it was worth the headache he had before fainting. SP amount left. 0. As he looked at his current amount of SP which had reached 0, Aaron felt a bit sad for not having an infinite amount of SP, where he could have just learned everything that fancied him and his plans, without having to worry about meticulously planning anything to the very last detail in order to conserve SP. So, he stood up, changed his clothes and went for a run as he had a daily quest to complete. He was determined to earn the points, no matter how small they may be, they were points nevertheless. And so, his journey with the system started with him rushing to complete One Punch Man's workout and knowing that someone was in for a face-slapping moment of their life. Only if they knew it. X3. Aaron rose from the ground. His breathing turned ragged and labored after an intense series of push-ups on the grassy expanse of the park. As he tried to steady his breathing, he began to jog, his movements smooth and effortless as he traversed across the verdant landscape. With each stride he took, he felt the muscles of his legs come to life, his feet pounding the soft earth underneath them with a steady rhythm. The morning sun shone down on him, casting long shadows behind him as he ran through the open spaces, his senses attuned to the sights and sounds around him. Despite the challenge of the workout he had just completed, Aaron continued to press on, pushing himself harder and harder with each passing moment. His breathing grew deeper and more measured, his body was also working in a perfect harmony as he ran with the power and grace like that of an athlete in his prime. And the young man continued to do so until a screen appeared in front of him. That was when he knew that his training had finally come to an end. Ding! Quest completed. Reward 100 SP. After taking a few deep breaths, Aaron gazed at his current balance of SPs, which showed that he had only managed to get 400 SP. And knowing that even the cheapest item in the system's shop would cost about 85,000 SPs, it means that he will either have to run for a really very long time or he will need to utilize the knowledge taught by the system very effectively in order to compensate for the little points he would be earning from these daily quests. Upon his return to his home, Aaron found his mother watching TV. "Are you done with your exercise?" asked Rose as she fiddled with the remote in her hands. "Yeah, today took longer than usual because I had to rest halfway through my jogging." Aaron nodded as he stretched his hand towards the bottle of water. "Not that I'm against it, but why did you start doing these exercises suddenly?" Rose asked with a complex look in her eyes as she looked at her son with worry deep in her eyes. "I needed to do something to vent out my stress, or I might just go crazy from all the overthinking. That's why I chose to start exercising because when I'm tired, I won't be able to think about any such complicated topics, saving me from some depressing thoughts," Aaron answered, revealing only half of the truth and withholding the other half about it being the system's quest. "Okay, you know that you can confide in me, right?" Rose said softly, showing that she really was concerned about her son. Of course, Mom, I know it. Aaron smiled at her as he placed the bottle back, knowing that he had a place to call home and a family to rely on. And this was also the final push he needed to motivate himself to come to a decision to begin his first step on this long journey for a better future for himself and for his family. Aaron sat on a chair after coming out of the bathroom after taking a shower, after being drenched with sweat from the intense exercise. He was contemplating how he should be using the knowledge he had acquired from the system. The reason he didn't copy the program word for word from the system was because the system was just way too ahead of the current time and it would be useless given the current internet infrastructure. He would need to dumb the current program down a bit in order for it to be able to work on the existing programs and sites. And that was also why it had taken him a week to determine his approach on how to dumb the program while still retaining its core ability intact. You can think of it being akin to translation works, and since the program given by the system was designed to be intended to check programs that were written in the year 2100 and later, Aaron needed to translate the system and make it compatible so that it could be able to work with programs that were written even earlier than that time. And so, his work began. Aaron started writing his program slowly while making sure that his program was still capable of detecting all sorts of vulnerabilities that could be exploited by others and was also capable of listing them out in an understandable manner for the users or the developers. While the program's first function alone was game-breaking, its second function offered one of the best ways among which he could use in order to double his income, which he would be getting by only finding the weaknesses in those programs. It took him 2 whole weeks to complete the program, but those 2 weeks did not go peacefully without any interruptions. When he replied to the email from the scholarship department, they informed him that he would need to visit them for a meeting, so that they could discuss the repayment plan. However, when he explained to them that currently, he wouldn't be able to visit them for the meeting, they sent him alternative plans from which he could choose one to begin his repayment. The choices were 1. Lump sum payment, 2. Installment plan. 3. Income-driven repayment plan. Each option among these 3 had its own difficulties for him, albeit for different reasons. When it came to a lump sum payment, he didn't even have a fifth of the total amount, so for him to be able to choose this option even if he wanted to was simply out of the question. The installment plan was presented with its own difficult ways since he will have to be paying it off in parts over a long period of time. However, this also comes with its challenges since the interest rate options that they gave him were way too high for him to even think of accepting. As for the third option, he couldn't choose it either, because he simply didn't have any income at the moment for choosing this plan. So Aaron found himself caught between a rock, a hard and tough place. But after contemplating for a long time and with the other side urging for him to give them a decision, Aaron ended up choosing the lesser of the evils, which was the second option that came with a hefty interest rate of 15%. Still, he couldn't help but wonder whether someone was deliberately trying to bankrupt him. Because when he signed the scholarship contract, there was a provision stating that in case of repayment of the grant needed to be repaid, the university had the liberty of choosing the interest of the payment plan, which would be ranging between 2.5% and 15% annually. However, when he inquired about this provision, Aaron was told that even if repayment was going to be necessary, the amount of interest that the university would usually choose would always be under 5%. Hell, even the highest interest rate given to a debaucher student was 9%, so what the hell did he do to be forced to pay it with 15%, which was the full amount of interest? Who the fuck did he piss off to be subjected to all this? Although it was the lesser of the 3 evils, it didn't leave him with any better taste in his mouth. Because if he continued with this payment plan until the end, he would have to pay almost $1,239,000 in the span of 27 years by paying a monthly installment of $1,000, which was all he could currently afford. $1,239,000, that was the total amount of money that he would have to pay due to the interest rate that will be accumulated for the period of over 27 years. I mean, come on, who the fuck would do that to someone who was once their student? Aaron swore that once he had completed the program for detecting weaknesses in the systems, he would start with his university's system and hack the shit out of the whole university to find out who the fuck was the mastermind that had planned this for making his life miserable. But since this was the only option that he was capable of paying right now, no matter if he will have to pay an exorbitant amount of money, he still ended up reluctantly choosing it while seething in anger and clenching his jaws hard. The only silver lining in all of this was the fact that he had managed to schedule another meeting in 2 months, where he would be able to choose another option from those 3. That also meant that he wouldn't begin his repayment plan until after the second meeting, giving him a 2-month grace period. So, now that he had 2 months worth of time period, Aaron knew that he needed to earn the amount of money within this period, lest he ended up having to pay $1 million something bullshit dollars. That's also why, the very moment he finished developing his weakness-finding program, Bug Zapper, Aaron kept the promise he had made to himself and tested it on his university's system. And soon enough, the program had already started testing every exploit that could be used to breach the university's system's defenses, rendering the firewall it was supposed to be protected with as ineffective as a tofu. Just a touch it couldn't even stand for more at all. While the university has invested a significant amount of money for the security of their system, when it was in the eyes of Aaron's program, it looked like nothing more than a kid trying to fight against a tank. It was effortlessly ripped through, identifying and detailing every weakness, providing instructions on how even a beginner-level programmer could exploit the system. With the passing of the 7th hour since the system started going through the university's system, Aaron's program still continued on exposing more and more vulnerabilities. There were several reasons why this process was taking such a long time to complete. Firstly, it was because Aaron's computer was cheap since his family couldn't afford a better one that would be quite expensive without leaving a hole in their finances. Currently, his cheap computer would even be able to cook an omelet from the heat that it had been generating. And to mitigate the issue, Aaron had to set up an impromptu cooling system by using his household fan. Secondly, since the program was developed in the 2100s, this meant that it had a compiled list of weaknesses from all the years before and after its development. However, during that time, many of these weaknesses were widely known by almost everyone and thus were consequently removed during the development phase. But in this particular universe, since Aaron is years before that, it means that most of these weaknesses have not even been discovered yet. And as a result of which, the program was busy finding a buttload amount of them, which resulted in making his computer a kind of stove. On the 3rd day after Aaron's program had started scanning the university's system's weaknesses, the program finally completed its job and started compiling a comprehensive report on how they could be used to exploit the system and provide solutions on how to address them. However, since the numerous inefficiencies in the system were also considered to be its weaknesses, the program also listed them in the report, along with ways on how to solve them. This gave Aaron hope on how he could potentially use the program to also optimize other people's programs for earning money. But first, he wanted to know as to who was so hellbent on making his life living hell. The final PDF document spanned 1,200 pages and about 400 of them were solely devoted to the weaknesses and how to exploit them, providing intricate details on how such an attack could be done. The rest of the pages discussed its optimization and how to solve the 400 pages of aforementioned weaknesses. So, Aaron took his time, thoroughly reading the whole document while enjoying every second of this as he knew that once he learned everything about it and implemented it later on, he will easily be able to identify who was fucking with his life. It took him 5 hours to complete reading the entire document and also comprehend everything mentioned in it. Now, here is a lesson if you aspire to hack something. There are 5 steps that you will need to follow. The first step is reconnaissance. During this step, all you have to do is gather information about your target. This may include identifying the target, finding the target's IP address range, network details, and DNS records. The second step is scanning. This phase includes the usage of tools such as dialers, port scanners, network mappers, sweepers and vulnerability scanners to scan and gather the data. The third step is gaining access. In this phase, the hacker designs a blueprint of the target's network with the help of data that was collected during the previous 2 steps. Thus, the hacker has now finished enumerating and scanning the network and can access from the available options to gain access to the target network. The fourth step is maintaining the access. Once a hacker has gained access, their goal is to maintain that access for future exploitation and attacks. Now that the hacker owns the system, they can use it as a base to launch additional attacks. The fifth and final step is covering the tracks. After the access is gained and privileges have been escalated, the hacker should cover their tracks. This includes clearing the emails sent, erasing the server logs, deleting the temp files, and much more. The hacker also has to look for any indications that the email provider may have tried to alert the user of the possible unauthorized logins under their account. However, since Aaron's program had already done most of the steps, he now only needs to focus on doing one step, the third step. As for the steps 4 and 5, he doesn't need to do them because the method with which he was going to gain the access to the university's system would not leave behind any traces. This was the most effective attack his program had discovered among the many others when it had been testing the university system's weakness. Aaron sat in front of his computer, his whole body shaking due to anger. If one looked at what he was reading right now, they would find that he was reading the emails that were sent by Professor Eli Yehuda Rodham Rothschild to someone on the disciplinary committee. The other email was from the same professor, this time it was sent to someone in the scholarship department. God knew how foolish they were to communicate using university-provided email accounts. Subject: Request for disciplinary hearing for a student. Dear members of the disciplinary committee, I am writing this letter to request a disciplinary hearing for a student whose conduct has come to my attention as a faculty member. I believe that this student has violated the university's code of conduct and may have engaged in academic misconduct, which has serious implications for the academic integrity of our institution and the trust that we place in our students. Based on my interactions with this student and my assessment of the evidence, I am convinced that this matter warrants a formal investigation and disciplinary action. I would like to request that the student be summoned to a hearing where they can present their case and respond to the allegations against them. I am willing to provide any evidence and testimony that I have gathered in support of my position, and I am open to answering any questions that the committee may have for me regarding this matter. Thank you for your attention on this matter, and I look forward to working with you to ensure that our academic standards are upheld and that justice is rightly served. Sincerely, Professor Eli Yehuda Rodham Rothschild. This revealed that it was Professor Rothschild who had fabricated the evidence and even reported Aaron to the disciplinary committee. That was when everything clicked into place as Aaron remembered that his professor had taken a vacation immediately after the failure of his thesis presentation. It became clear that he had been preparing for Aaron's downfall for the embarrassment Aaron had caused him. The other email was directed to the scholarship department. Subject: Request for Aaron's repayment plan to be made at the maximum allowable interest rate. Dear Scholarship Department, I am writing this to request a repayment plan for Aaron, a former scholarship recipient who was recently expelled from our institution for thesis theft. While I cannot adequately express my disappointment in his actions, I believe that it is important for us to set an example and establish a precedent with him as we move forward and make him an example for the consequences of his mistakes. Given the circumstances, I would like to request a modification to the terms of the scholarship agreement. Specifically, I am requesting that the interest rate on Aaron's loan be modified to the maximum allowable rate of annual 15%. While this modification may result in a lower overall return for the scholarship fund, I believe that it is reasonable as it will set him as an example. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Please let me know if you require any additional information or documentation. Sincerely, Professor Eli Yehuda Rodham Rothschild. Damn, the dude even wrote a letter to the scholarship department, for fuck's sake. Aaron realized that he could potentially use this information to his advantage to sue both the professor and the university. However, he will need to reveal where he got these private emails from. So, this evidence might as well backfire on him. Furthermore, since he still didn't know how the professor fabricated the thesis used as evidence against him during the hearing, Aaron knew that it was better for him to continue digging for more evidence. Despite that, this had brought him some relief, albeit it was just a bit. As some smart dude in the past once said, the first step to solving a problem is knowing what caused it in the first place. And now that he finally found out who was the instigator, and the veil of mysteriousness had been removed, the fear of the unknown was also removed from his heart. This meant that now he won't have nightmares of some faceless dude trying to destroy his future and make his life miserable. Although he didn't understand why the professor decided to ruin his life solely because he had embarrassed him, Aaron's head was spinning thinking about how to take revenge from this professor. But before that, he needed to know the context or the reason as to why the professor had gone this far, because embarrassing someone once again wouldn't be enough to ruin their life. And once he acquired this information, Aaron would decide how brutal his revenge should be. But even within all of this, he was also relieved with the fact that his program was proven to be remarkably good at doing its job. This will mean that his money-making plan has finally taken its first step into his bright future. After exploiting the vulnerabilities and gaining access to the university's database and finding out who it was who had been plotting for his misery, Aaron managed to calm himself down and then shifted his focus towards earning money first in order to relieve himself from the debt so that it won't raise a negative situation in the future. With that, he decided to find his first target for his grand money-making plan, and since he needed a large amount of money, Aaron needed to find the victim who would not only put way too much importance on their data security but also boasted a very large user base and wanted to prevent user data theft. This means that such a target will be willing to pay more money for his service, since a data leak for them may mean that they would lose their users' trust in their security system. So, with all that in mind, Aaron decided to focus on social media sites since they perfectly met all of his criteria. He then started investigating these platforms and initiated gathering all the necessary details before he could make a final choice on which one to choose. And these are what he discovered after a few hours of research, as of May 28, 2013. Facebook. Facebook's market valuation stands at approximately $63 billion with 1.11 billion monthly active users. YouTube. YouTube's market valuation remains undisclosed, but the platform has reported 1 billion unique monthly visitors. Qzone, owned by Chinese technology giant Tencent, has approximately 597 million registered users as of May 2013, however, its market valuation still remains unknown. Sina Weibo. Sina Weibo's market valuation stands at approximately $3.3 billion, with 500 million registered users. Google+. Although Google+ had amassed more than 500 million registered users by December 2012, the social media platform's market valuation is currently unknown. Twitter. Twitter's market valuation remains undisclosed, with 200 million monthly active users. LinkedIn. LinkedIn went public in May 2011, and has grown to over 225 million registered users as of today, with a market valuation of approximately $20.5 billion. Instagram. In April 2012, Facebook acquired Instagram for $1 billion. Its market valuation is incorporated into Facebook's overall valuation, with 100 million monthly active users. Tumblr. Yahoo announced its acquisition of Tumblr for $1.1 billion. Its market valuation is likely to be around the same amount, with 300 million monthly active users. Vine. Vine's market valuation remains undisclosed, with 13 million registered users. Vine was acquired by Twitter in October 2012. This was what Aaron had found out about their user data and their valuation in the market up to the present month. Given the limitations of his computer, he can only choose one among the companies at a time since the process was going to take about a week to complete. And since he planned to upgrade it the moment he gets money, Aaron decided to go with the company which has the most money right now and could immediately pay him without beating around the bush too much. So, Aaron chose Facebook, given its substantial resources, a large number of users and the highest valuation among all the companies. He also reasoned that they must be valuing their lead in their market and wouldn't want a scandal which could make their competitors catch up to them in a year after they have gone public, and if this happens, it would be quite detrimental for them as they might lose their lead along with the shareholders meeting that would happen after such an incident would definitely be funny. After making his choice on which program to start with, Aaron immediately started his program, letting it immediately start scanning the Facebook app for its weaknesses. 2 weeks later, at the headquarters of Facebook, Roxana Gray, the head of the website security department, walked into the office but was immediately met with a commotion right after her entry. The moment she opened the door, everyone's eyes turned towards her and one of them asked, "Ma'am, why aren't you answering your phone?" It was on silent mode. "But why? Is there something urgent or what?" Roxana inquired. "Yes ma'am, we have received a suspicious email claiming that they have found some security breaches on our system and they have also provided an example of a few of them," responded the man with a wry look on his face. Upon hearing this, Roxana immediately frowned, "Meeting room in 10 minutes," before leaving for her office to calm herself down and prepare for the upcoming meeting. In the conference room, Roxana arrived about 5 minutes before the agreed time, only to find out that everyone was already present there, addressing the situation. She started saying, "Since everyone is already here, let's hear everything from the beginning." "Yes, ma'am," answered the man from before, taking the lead in explaining everything from the beginning. "When I was checking my office email, I came across an email with the subject line as 'I have found some security weaknesses in your app,'" he said while opening the email and projecting it onto the screen so that everyone could see. The email read, "Subject, disclosure of vulnerabilities in Facebook's app and system. To whom it may concern, I am writing to inform you that I have discovered a few vulnerabilities in Facebook's app and system that could potentially compromise the user's data and security. As a concerned citizen and a user of your platform, I feel it is my responsibility to report these vulnerabilities to you so that they can be addressed and resolved as soon as possible. I have already provided you with a few samples of these vulnerabilities that I have discovered, free of charge. However, I have more of the app's vulnerabilities which I am willing to share with you, but I will require an adequate compensation for the remaining information. I would like to stress that my intentions for reporting these vulnerabilities are solely to help you to improve the security of your platform and protect your users' privacy. Though I am not seeking any personal gain or compensation for the examples that I have already provided, however, I believe that it is appropriate for the right compensation for my services if you require additional information that is beyond what I have already provided. I urge you to take these vulnerabilities seriously and take immediate action to address and resolve them. Please contact me at this email if you require the remaining information or have any questions. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Vulnerabilities vir01.pdf. Sincerely, Aaron Michael. After reading this email, the man then continued with his explanation. At first I thought that it was a prank, but I still tried one out of curiosity, and when I tested the vulnerabilities he sent to us, it did exactly how it was explained by him, and the way he used them to exploit the system wouldn't have been spotted by our firewall either. Then I tried testing others as well, and though it makes me feel disbelief, but all of this is true. Finished the man and waited for them to digest what he had just said. "Who do you think he is?" asked one of them in curiosity. However, Roxana interjected, disappointed with whoever had asked this. "That's not important right now. What matters is to patch this security hole and contact him and arrange a meeting with him, the sooner the better." They further discussed a little bit more about this matter before ending the meeting and heading back to their workstations to address the remaining vulnerabilities Aaron had shared with them. Simultaneously, they also initiated contact with Aaron to schedule a meeting with him in a few coming days. When Aaron received the reply from Facebook, he was relieved knowing that they had taken his email seriously, or else he didn't have something that would attract their attention. He didn't want to wait another 2 weeks to discover the vulnerabilities of another social media company's system. After a series of back and forth communication between Aaron and Facebook, they finally agreed to hold a meeting in the Facebook's office. He was offered an all-expense-paid trip for the meeting with them next week, as they anticipated that his visit would extend for more than 3 days due to payments negotiation, which will also take place during their meeting. After agreeing to their meeting plan, Aaron took out his cell phone and called one of his few remaining friends, Felix, who was a law student specializing in technology-related legal issues. When he answered the call, the two caught up with their current situation and engaged in a few small talks. Eventually, Aaron delved into the main topic. He explained to Flexis everything in detail about his situation with Facebook, including their planned meeting next week, and that he needed a lawyer who was specializing in tech-related matters to accompany him and also represent him during the meeting with Facebook, making sure that he gets fair payment for what he deserves and they don't undervalue his contribution. Felix agreed to help him but suggested that they would need to meet first in order to completely understand the situation and to adequately prepare for the meeting with Facebook. Hence, they agreed to meet in the evening. After he ended the phone call, Aaron got up and changed into his jogging clothes since he needed to complete his daily quest to earn some SP, as currently he only had 26,600 SP. Normally, he should only have earned about 1,600 SPs, but since he had managed to use the knowledge given by the system, Aaron earned an extra 10,000 SP when he completed his version of Bug Zapper. However, he got a grade of F- because he had downgraded the program for it to work in the current era. The system interpreted it as him not using the program to its fullest potential. He also earned an additional 5,000 SPs when he used the program to test it on the university's system and earned another 10,000 SPs when he used the program on Facebook's systems. And since Facebook had a larger system size, the impact he would have through Facebook will be higher when compared to the university's system. Along with that, it took nearly 2 weeks to complete the extensive evaluation of the Facebook system due to the massive amounts of information to sort, and a crappy computer contributing to it didn't help much either. Cafe Aaron arrived at the meeting place where he had planned to meet with Felix and give him a detailed explanation in order for him to prepare for the meeting with the Facebook officials and negotiation with Facebook. 3 minutes after Aaron had gotten his drink, Felix arrived, shaking hands with Aaron and giving him a hug. Aaron's friend sat down on the opposite side. "How have you been coping since that day?" Felix asked with slight worry. He was aware of Aaron's condition and also thought that his friend wouldn't have done such a thing. "Though it was difficult at first, it has been going pretty well now. In fact, I'm even surprised at myself." Aaron smiled while answering and waving his hand. Although he didn't explain the reason as to what was helping him cope or gave him hope, it didn't mean he wasn't grateful for it. Without the arrival of the system, it would have taken him longer to be able to recover and move on from what had happened to him, and since those nasty people had decided to add a massive debt on top of the fact that he was already down, Aaron would have definitely gone crazy if he didn't have any assistance from someone. "I'm surprised too. I thought you would still continue to ignore my calls, but I didn't think that you would be the first to call me on your own," Felix replied with a smile. "Since many who called themselves my friend decided to abandon me right after hearing the rumors without even trying to verify it with me, I was afraid that you too, who were among the last of the few who did not express their stance, would also leave my side. That's why I was avoiding you and Sarah," Aaron answered with a wry smile on his face, indicating the pain of betrayal. "You didn't answer even Sarah's calls?" Felix repeated with a surprised look on his face, meaning that he wasn't expecting Aaron to avoid her since he had been friends with Sarah even before he had met Aaron. "I was avoiding her because she would be nagging me all around, asking if I was cheating and why didn't I hide it better or something," Aaron chuckled dryly, knowing very well that Sarah would never abandon him no matter what, since she was his friend ever since their high school year when they met Felix. "Yeah, I expected that," Felix chuckled with a reply, remembering Sarah's behavior, and then decided that it was better to talk about why he had come here as he calmed himself from the laugh. "So what is this thing about you and Facebook?" "Oh yeah, so this is what happened." Aaron then started explaining to Felix that he found some weaknesses in Facebook's system and emailed them to inform and demonstrate some of the weaknesses as examples to prove his legitimacy, and how he had also informed them that he had more of them but he would need them to compensate him for the work. Additionally, Aaron also revealed that the Facebook team had contacted him and they had even managed to set up a meeting with him next week on a fully expense-paid trip. This was also included with anyone who would be coming with him, and the reason he called Felix was that he needed a lawyer who was specializing in tech to make sure that he would receive the right compensation he deserved. After finishing explaining everything to Felix, while keeping anything related to the system as a secret, Aaron only briefly mentioned the fact that he had developed an app which could exploit weaknesses like these in other apps, without going into full details on how it works, and then waited for Felix to digest the information. It took Felix about 5 minutes, during which they continued drinking their coffee while he was thinking as Aaron waited. "So, about those weaknesses, exactly how many of them did you find and what level are they?" Felix asked, wanting to know more since he wanted to be completely prepared. "Okay. Back to school now. So what are the different levels of vulnerabilities?" Security weaknesses can be categorized into several different levels, each level depending on the severity and impact of these weaknesses. The 4 levels of security vulnerabilities are: 1. Low-level vulnerabilities. These are the most common types of security weaknesses and are relatively easy to exploit. They may include aspects like weak passwords, unpatched software, or poorly configured systems. 2. Medium-level vulnerabilities. These types of security weaknesses have a higher significance than the low-level vulnerabilities but still do not pose an immediate and severe level risk to the system. 3. High-level vulnerabilities. These types of security weaknesses are serious and can lead to serious consequences if they remain unaddressed quickly enough. 4. Critical-level vulnerabilities. These are the most severe types of security weaknesses and can pose an immediate and severe threat to the system's security, and it's better to check for their presence before releasing the system so as to not compromise any user data or other critical information about the system itself. Now let's get back to our story. I have found about 50 critical level, 150 high level, 500 medium level, and over 1,000 low-level vulnerabilities, Aaron answered calmly. Of course, he didn't disclose all of them. What? Felix was so shell-shocked that he stood up while shouting, making his chair fall and causing everyone to look in their direction. Calm down a little bit, man, Aaron said, having a hard time stopping himself from laughing out aloud after witnessing his friend's reaction. After apologizing to everyone with embarrassment, Felix sat down and replied to his friend, "How the fuck did you find out that much? And how the heck do you even expect me to be calm after what you just said?" "Sorry," Aaron apologized, still a bit amused by his friend's reaction. "So what do you plan to do with all of them?" After a moment, Felix asked before asking another question as if he had thought of something. "And do you have anything else in your mind?" "Oh yeah, I also have the solution for all those vulnerabilities," Aaron answered calmly. "What? Oh, for fuck's sake, Aaron, just say everything at once. Don't make me have several near heart attack situations at every interval," Felix grumbled. "I want you to use these solutions to make them double the payment in return for including both the vulnerabilities and the solution pack together." Aaron lightly explained his plan. "Ooh, now I understand why you would need a lawyer. Just with the number of vulnerabilities you have discovered, they will need to pay millions, but if you also provide them with the solutions to these vulnerabilities, not only will it save them time but it will also make them have a step ahead of their competitors." Felix continued speaking, because the longer the time passed, the more his mind came with ideas on how to exploit these vulnerabilities to their benefit. The duo of friends continued talking for 2 more hours until they agreed to have one more meeting before they went to have their meeting with Facebook. However, Aaron decided to call Sarah on his way home, because he knew that the longer he postponed doing so, the longer the nagging he would have to deal with in the future. Aaron dialed Sarah's number nervously, expecting her not to pick it up in a fit of anger, but to his surprise she picked up and answered the phone. However, with a hint of anger in her voice she asked, "Hello, who is this?" acting as if she didn't recognize him. Aaron replied with a wry smile on his face, "Hi Sarah, it's Aaron. I know you know it's me and I wanted to apologize for not answering your call. When I got dismissed from the university, I was really struggling to cope with the situation and thus ended up not answering anyone's calls." Aaron then continued, "I also lost many friends during that time. It was really tough to deal with, especially because they didn't even try to verify what was going on before abandoning me. Now that I've had some time to think about it, I can understand that ghosting you and everyone else was a real dick move. I'm sorry for hurting you and I hope that you can forgive me." Sarah was initially taken aback by Aaron's apology since she was expecting him to reply to the banter like he usually did whenever he had a problem, but after a moment of silence, her tone softened. "Sorry for answering like that. Also thank you for apologizing, Aaron. I was really worried about you when you didn't answer my calls and I had some idea as to what was really going on, but I didn't know that there would be people who would abandon you. It hurt more knowing that you didn't try to reach out, but I now understand that you were also going through a really tough time." After a moment of pause from both sides, Sarah asked, "So how are you coping and are you fine now?" Aaron sighed in relief, grateful that Sarah had understood. "I really appreciate your kindness, Sarah. It was a dark time for me, however, now I'm already getting back on my feet, one step at a time." "Aaron, I'm always there for you, you know that right?" Sarah replied, her tone warming up. "Yeah, I know that you are always on my side, it's just that I didn't want to stress you while you were busy dealing with your graduation and other things." With that, the two continued to chat for a while, catching up on each other's lives and making plans to meet up soon after his upcoming meeting with Facebook was concluded. After finally ending the call, Aaron felt as if a heavy weight had been lifted off his shoulders as he reconnected with a friend who had stood by him during all of the difficult times in the past, and he knew that he had made the right decision to reach out now to reconnect and apologize to her. After the call, Aaron rushed back home to have dinner with his family, after which he cleaned himself up, helped his younger brother, Henry, with his homework, put him to sleep, went back to his room, spent some time thinking about the future, before falling asleep as he dreamt of a bright future that lay ahead for him and his family and friends who remained on his side. After a few days, it was finally time for the meeting with the group from Facebook, and having provided with all the expenses, Aaron and Felix didn't fret about anything and were now in the venue that was planned for the meeting to take place. The atmosphere in the meeting room was tense as the group of 8 sat in their respective positions, with each side almost mirroring the other. On one side of the long conference table sat Aaron, accompanied by his friend and lawyer Felix with a laptop in front of him displaying a folder labeled as "Sensitive Information" on the screen, and a USB flash drive inserted in the computer. On the opposite side sat 6 individuals, including Roxana, the head of security at Facebook, along with 5 other people, 3 among which were lawyers and the other 2 were from the security department of the Facebook site. Aaron fidgeted in his seat, his eyes darting nervously from the screen to the faces of the people sitting across from him, as both sides prepared to engage in a high-stakes discussion and negotiation. The still atmosphere in the silent room was broken by the sound of shuffling papers and clearing throats as the meeting began while Aaron braced himself for what was to come. Taking a deep breath, Aaron steadied himself while preparing to share his findings with the group. This was going to be a long day. This is going to take a while, Aaron sighed, focusing on presenting them with an example, and after the agreement of the payment was done, he would give them the rest. Here are a few new examples of your system's vulnerabilities, he said, projecting his screen onto the wall using the provided projector. Mr. Aaron, we have already tested the ones you sent to us last time, so there is no need to explain to us more. Just tell us how many vulnerabilities you have found. Roxana interjected just when Aaron was about to start displaying a few more examples. That works even better for me, as it reduces my stress trying to explain things in front of so many big people. Aaron immediately agreed to answer her question. Currently, I have identified more than 1,700 vulnerabilities in your system, Aaron answered plainly. However, the number made all the 6 people on the opposite side of the table look at them with shock. Oh my God, Roxana muttered under her breath after hearing Aaron's answer. She had expected that the number might range between 10 or more since he had already sent 3 of them as samples, but with what she heard just now, it meant that the number was way more than what she would have ever thought of even in her wildest imaginations. However, Aaron couldn't care about that and continued with his explanation. In that total number, there are about 50 critical level, 150 high level, 500 medium level, and over 1,000 low-level vulnerabilities. He addressed his findings calmly. When the Facebook security team heard that the total number of critical and high-level vulnerabilities had already crossed the number of over 200, they had already realized that they would need to almost overhaul their entire system to address these weaknesses, and it would for sure take a very long time, but that was not all, as it would also require a large amount of money. From a simple fast calculation, Roxana determined that they would need to invest almost 250 million. Moreover, it would also take months to finish this task since most of these vulnerabilities were new and they would have to invent the solutions by themselves. Just when Roxana was about to fall into despair, a light of hope was offered to them by Aaron, as he said, I also have their solution. However, I can only provide them to you if my compensation is doubled, and those fees will be negotiated with my lawyer here, while pointing at Felix. A sense of relief washed over Roxana after she heard those words from Aaron. She had already considered hiring him into his team, but she also understood why would someone want to work for someone when he could earn more by simply working alone. What followed next was the negotiation part, which was between Felix and the 3 Facebook lawyers, and every lawyer would want to get the best deal for his client, as their payment depends on how much they win or how much they were able to save for their clients. This back-and-forth conversation continued for 2 days until they finally agreed on the price. Though they couldn't come to an agreement when it came to some of the NDA clauses, ultimately, they managed to come to terms and signed an agreement. It was agreed that Aaron's payment will be $69 million after deducting all the taxes and lawyer fees. Although his friend initially denied an offer of being paid $10 million, stating that he didn't do much, however, after a small discussion with Aaron, he ended up agreeing to take $5 million as a fee. Although this amount might seem low when compared to what Aaron had earned, it was important to know that usually, the amount the lawyers would get from such types of deals was only about $1 million. Moreover, it also had to be noted that this was Felix's second official case since his graduation, making him the highest-paid rookie lawyer in America, or so it seemed. Upon returning back to his home, Aaron asked his parents if he wanted to have a talk with them. In the living room, "You remember when I said that I have a meeting with Facebook?" Aaron began sitting in front of them. "Yes, so how did it go? Did you get the job?" asked his mother, Rose, who was filled with enthusiasm. "No, I wasn't there for a job meeting. I was there because I found some weaknesses in their app and went to meet them to talk about payment issues," Aaron explained at a simpler level so that his parents could understand. "So did they agree to pay you?" asked his father, Michael, skeptical that they would willingly want to compensate his son. "Yes, they agreed to pay me. We have already signed a contract and they will forward the payment invoice by tomorrow." Aaron stopped to take a breath and continued. "So, now that the money is enough, I wanted to ask you if you want to move to a new house," Aaron asked, waiting for the answer from his parents. His mother was filled with joy, hearing his question, but asked instead, "Don't you need that money for yourself? Why would you want to buy a house immediately?" "Mom, you don't have to worry about the money not being enough. They have paid me enough to buy a house and much more," Aaron reassured. "Then perhaps you should use that money to start a business or something. You will need a source of income after this money runs out." However, his mother continued being against it, while his father nodded in agreement with her. "Mom, they have paid me more than $5 million, so you don't have to worry about money shortage for a period of time," Aaron countered, deciding to downplay the amount given to him or else they would think he was being scammed, lest they take him for a fool. What did you do for them to pay you that much? Are you sure it's not a scam?" asked his father with a look of worry, afraid that his son was being conned. "No, Dad, you don't have to worry about it being a scam. I went there with a lawyer and we signed a contract. So even if they want to, they can't scam me, because I can sue them," Aaron tried to explain. "Well, if there was a lawyer with you then it's okay, but since it is your money, it's up to you on how you spend it and remember not to spend it recklessly like those lottery winners, understood?" his father advised with a serious expression. Although he felt proud of his son, Michael didn't want to show it, lest it gets over his son's head. "Yes, I understand and will be careful, you don't have to worry about that. Then, I have decided to go ahead with buying a house," Aaron affirmed. "Your money, your choice, but just be careful, as your father said," Rose added, showing pride in her son's achievement. The three then continued to have a talk about how his visit went and many other small topics until it was time for dinner and they all went to eat. 2 days later, Aaron was currently staring at his phone screen which displayed his current bank account statement. $69,027. This is the first time ever that the money in his bank account had exceeded the $1,000 mark. Now that he had already received the money, Aaron needed to plan on how to use it wisely in order for it to help him propel himself into greatness. He decided not to pay off the school debt immediately, fearing that it might tip the professor that something good might have happened to him, and since he wasn't aware of how powerful the professor's connections were, Aaron decided to wait for the second meeting about payment negotiation plans in order to do so. So, his current plan was 1. Buy a good house and car for his family. 2. Transfer his younger brother to a good school. 3. Upgrade his computer into a personal server computer. 4. Meet Sarah. 5. Make his father quit his job and do what he wants, now that they were financially secure. 6. Start a business that could fully utilize the program, Bug Zapper, to its full potential and earn significant money for him to invest in his future business endeavors. Although he had more than 5 things he needed to do right now, Aaron was happy to do them because of the positive changes that had happened to him just after 3 days after he was unreasonably expelled from his university and just 2 days before his graduation, leaving him with $250,000 of student debt out of nowhere, so compared to that his current life was pretty good in his eyes. Of course, this didn't mean that he wasn't angry at what had happened to him. The reason he postponed his investigation for revenge planning was that he needed to be in a stable position so that he could plan it peacefully and meticulously. Aaron and his family finally moved into their new house by the 4th week after their initial discussion that night. Image here, after purchasing the house, Aaron bought 2 cars for his family's use. Image here, his parents were overjoyed, knowing that they no longer had to worry about rent and other miscellaneous expenses. Initially, when he showed the house to his parents, they asked him to consider buying a more affordable one, because this one was very expensive. However, Aaron managed to convince them by telling them that he had chosen this house since it would provide an easier access for his younger brother to the better schools around here, which eventually made them agree to his purchase. The house was a spacious 6-bedroom property with a ground floor, an upper floor and a basement. Currently, they were using only 3 rooms, one for his parents, one for him, and one for his younger brother, while the rest were reserved for guests and other purposes. As for the basement, it became Aaron's personal space where he had planned to set up his home server. Since normal servers were usually noisy and created too much heat, he needed to soundproof the entire basement. Also, because they generated too much heat, he also had to install cooling systems for the entire basement and a vent that could redirect the heat away so that it doesn't make its way towards the living areas of the house. But all those precautions were overkill since the server he bought was a very quiet one. It features dual Intel Xeon processors, with a terabyte of RAM and 10 2TB SAS hard drives in RAID 10 configuration for storage. For those who aren't able to understand this jargon, this basically means with this setup, he can run multiple virtual machines, host his own websites, and even set up his own cloud storage system. And with the 10 gigabit Ethernet network card and the Adaptec RAID controller, he was also capable of transferring data at lightning-fast speeds. It was similar to having his own personal data center right in his basement. However, he will only be using it mainly for running Bug Zapper on multiple virtual machines simultaneously. He will be accessing all of this from his workroom, which was upstairs, by using the 10 gigabit Ethernet network connection. Furthermore, he also ensured that his house had the fastest cable connection available at the time, which provided a download speed of up to 505 megabits per second and upload speeds of up to 100 megabits per second. For 2013, that was really fast. This meant that the setup allowed him to perform everything while he was conveniently sitting in his workroom. After Aaron and his family finally were done settling into their new house and ensuring that his brother went to the new school, they started to get used to their new life. Aaron decided to gift both his parents $1 million each since he had asked them to quit their demanding jobs and enjoy their lives. Approximately 1 month after his deal with Facebook, after Aaron finally finished handling a few minor issues, he finally had the time to start focusing on making more money using Bug Zapper. However, all that had to wait before he finished jogging. Ding! Quest complete. Rewards 100 SP, total available 29,600 SP. Aaron stopped running after finishing his quest. Though he was tired, it wasn't like the time when he started doing the quests for the first time. Besides, he was now getting fit and had also started getting used to the system. He was expecting for the system to upgrade the quest very soon. Aaron could be seen sitting in his workroom in front of his new computer, which was currently connected to his home server. He started working for the first time in a while. Since he upgraded his computer system to the latest specs, Aaron could run multiple virtual machines at once, meaning that it enabled him to work on multiple programs at once. So he started to investigate which social media companies he should check next, and since he had already investigated a few, after which he chose Facebook. After a thorough research, he finally came to a conclusion as to which company he wanted to choose. It was Google and their products. This meant that he was going to take a look at its several sites, including YouTube, Google+, and the Google site itself. He planned to approach them at once in order to be able to sell his findings collectively for a high price. After choosing his next victims, he fired up the programs in multiple virtual machines and patiently waited for the machine to do its magic. And so, the waiting game thus began. While the machine was doing its work, Aaron took a break and went downstairs to play and spend time with his younger brother, Henry, since they were new in the area and he had managed to make a few friends in the neighborhood. Aaron opened his eyes, waking up from his sleep due to the annoying alarm on the side of his bed. He then felt someone squirm around him, and after a short moment of adjustment, he remembered that it was his younger brother who had fallen asleep on his bed after watching a movie together the previous night. Aaron turned off the alarm, being careful so as not to wake his brother up before he headed to the bathroom to wash his face and prepare himself for his usual morning exercise routine. After 10 minutes of preparation, Aaron headed out of the house and started his jogging session. After he finished his morning exercise routine, Aaron was surprised to find something peculiar than his normal quest notification, as it was followed by a new notification. Ding! Milestone achieved. Reward 10,000 SP quest update. Ding! New quest, daily quest. Ways to get stronger. 250 push-ups. 0 250ths, 250 crunches. 0 250ths, 250 squat. 0 250ths. 10 kilometers running. 0 tenths. Rewards. 500 SP. It was an upgrade of his daily quest. This time it also came with a significant increase in rewards, with a magnitude of 5 times greater than before. This made Aaron thrilled because it meant that the stronger he gets, the more substantial his rewards would become, meaning that there might even come a time when he can earn 100,000 SPs each day with this daily quest, although he acknowledged that might even be challenging enough that he would need to run to the moon and back for that, but who was to say that we can't have hope, right? So, at least there was a hope for greater rewards in the future. After he returned home, Aaron cleaned himself before having some breakfast and then heading back to his workroom. When he entered and started to check his computer to review how the process went, Aaron realized that the process had been completed 3 hours ago, along with the completion of the writing of reports for the 3 apps as well. Thus, he started to look through the 3 documents. However, this time, it took him a little longer since they were extremely lengthy. After approximately 5 hours, he finally managed to finish reading through all the files. After his inspection, Aaron discovered that although many of the critical security breaches of the Google apps were nearly the same as Facebook, in Google there were some that were far more harmful if exploited negatively. For example, there was a critical security breach that rendered any account's security on Google products almost obsolete. Another critical breach granted him access to any person's Android device. So essentially, this meant that currently, he was no different than an admin of Google. Actually, maybe it was the opposite, since he had more access than any administrators of Google. Aaron continued to uncover more and more vulnerabilities, which only kept getting worse, meaning that right now he could easily make Google lose half of its market shares if he wanted to. With such a leverage, Aaron knew that he could demand a substantial sum from Google, and also ensure that they would never consider causing harm to him or his family. And since he had managed to find such a good exploit, it was time for him to put it to good use. Thus, he started by accessing Google's servers to get access to their email depository. Once he managed to get access to them, he searched his professor's email, and after he found it, he proceeded to initiate downloading all of his emails to his home server. Given that his download speed was fast, 500 Mbps, it would take about 20 hours for him to complete the download, and because he needed to make sure that no one was suspicious of what he was doing, he needed to make it appear that the emails he was downloading acted just like normal emails being sent, so he set a limit on how many emails can be downloaded at once. Although he was confident that won't be leaving behind any traces, downloading such a massive amount of data from a server meant that anyone looking at the server's memory usage while this was happening could discover that a massive amount of data was being downloaded to somewhere they weren't able to trace back. However, after he completed downloading what he wanted, he planned to delete its history from the server's memory, making sure that it seemed like he was never there. And that is the reason why he had to limit the download amount at once. And with that began the game of waiting. The anticipation of getting more information about how his professor planned for his fall also began rising in his mind. But while the download was going on in the background, he started using this waiting time to do something that had the same importance or more. So, he started using the breach he found in the Android to access the professor's phone. Fortunately, he had the professor's phone number, with which he managed to find the phone in no time. The number was given to everyone in his class in order to contact him in case it was needed. Yet, no one ever contacted him using the number since he seldom responded to it, so it was useless to Aaron until now. After he gained access to the phone, he started downloading everything he could from the phone as well, but this will have to take longer because he needed to make sure the download speed was slow enough so that the phone doesn't overheat or make the professor's internet too slow, which would make the professor suspicious of his device. He teaches computer engineering, so if he were to get suspicious, it was game over. He would just factory reset the phone completely just to free himself from doubts.